Just because you're on console doesn't mean you can't become an FNCS champion. Alright, maybe that's a stretch, but you can still turn sweaty enough to get your first earnings or be the best in your friend group. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how you as a console player can bridge the gap between your system and playing on that $1,000 PC you always wanted. Now, I'm not a pro myself, but I know computers quite well, so just trust me on this stuff. Number one is you're going to want to start using a monitor. Guys, 90% of what makes PC better than console is actually just the display, and even a lot of PC players are ignorant when they make the switch, they start glazing their PC, but it's actually the switch to monitor that makes it better. Monitors have less input lag, which is the delay between the images being rendered on your system to what shows up on your screen, as well as response time, which helps with blurriness. Not only that, but sitting close to a small display is just way better than sitting far away from a big one. Ideally, you're on PS5 or Xbox Series X and you can get yourself a 1440p 120Hz or greater gaming monitor that is somewhere between 24 to 27 inches. Size is more of a personal preference, but avoid something that's really big like 32 inches. However, even if you're on Xbox Series S, you can still do 120Hz at 1080p. I'd stick to 24 inches at that resolution, though 27 is still passable. And if you're on PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X and you don't have money for 1440p, 1080p is also just fine. Once you get your monitor on Xbox, make sure to set up GSync or FreeSync. This will further reduce input lag. Unfortunately, on PS5, neither of these are supported. It does support VRR, but this is only seen on very expensive gaming monitors and is not worth it to shell out for this purpose alone. And this kind of goes without saying, but make sure you turn on performance mode so that you are getting that 120 FPS instead of that 60 FPS. On top of that, the graphics are a lot more toned down, making it easier to see enemies. When purchasing that monitor, I also want you guys to keep in mind that you can hook your laptop up to your monitor using the USB-C mini display or HDMI port on your laptop. This will give you more screen space to do work and be more productive. So that's a good way of justifying the cost of buying such a thing. And if you're a kid, you can tell your parents that you're using it for schoolwork and maybe they'll buy you it. The next thing I'm going to talk about is I'm going to address a very popular myth, but do not use a keyboard and mouse on console. On PlayStation, you will get a lot of input lag if you use it, and on Xbox, you won't get as much input lag, but your mouse will be stuck to accelerate instead of linear, and accelerate is horrible for PC, so stick to controller. Remember, Miro has 6 FNCS wins and he did it all on controller. Not to mention, aim assist is stronger on controller when using a console versus PC, and he did it on PC. So guys, you really have no excuse. Now when it comes to being the best on controller, there's a lot of things I can get into, like that could be a 1-hour video, but honestly there's 3 things I want you guys to keep in mind. Number 1 is to try to up your look sensitivities so that it's at least 6. There are many times I totally wipe someone and I can tell they're on controller using a low sensitivity because they turn slowly. They simply can't match up to my footsteps, and that's a major handicap. The second is to switch to claw grip, especially if you play build mode. If claw is uncomfy, you can buy a controller that has paddles and use those back paddles instead, but that can be really expensive, especially if you're on PlayStation. You can mod paddles onto it for cheaply though if you're comfortable doing that. Another good mod is trigger mods. You can get that for either PlayStation or Xbox, and what that does is that it turns your triggers into like mouse clicks that helps help you fire faster. But if neither of these are an option for you, at least try configuring your R3 button to build instead of crouch, because building is a lot more important than crouching, and you want to have your fingers on the C stick as much as possible. Having to switch between that and the face buttons is a major hindrance. The third thing though is that changing your settings is just a journey. You can look up pro settings, but honestly it comes down to what works for you best. So keep trying different things, adjust it here and there until you find something that works for you. Half the people who are pros, they like exponential, and half them like linear. So yeah, I can't give you the answer to that in this video. That's something you gotta test and learn for your own. The last thing, and this is something that applies to both PC and console, but console players tend to really ignore this, is that you need to try to play on Ethernet. So having an Ethernet cable plugged into your console instead of using Wi-Fi. Now, it doesn't matter how fast your Wi-Fi is because download speeds aren't what matter, stability and low ping are, and Ethernet is king when it comes to that. If your internet is already super stable, then it isn't so important, but if you get hiccups, lag, that here and there, then Ethernet can really help with that. Remember, there are a lot of ways to run an Ethernet cable through your house, like through the windows using certain attachments or drilling holes, but if neither of that is an option for you, you can try a power line adapter that runs Ethernet through your power lines. They are plug and play type of solution and is what I use personally. But when buying one, make sure to return it. Make sure you buy from somewhere that you can return it because they don't always work well. If your house has like old electrical wiring, then it's not going to work well. So yeah. Now the last thing I want you guys to keep in mind, and this is probably the most important thing, but it's to stop worrying about stuff that you have no control over and start focusing on what you do have control over. When you die, you can always blame it on the fact that somebody had a $3,000 setup and that's why he's better than you. But is that mindset really going to help you? There's always a way to justify your mediocrity, and instead, you should believe in yourself, and you should know that with your skills, you can conquer the world. You just need to keep trying harder, and I know regardless of what platform you're on, one day you're going to make it.